Hello, Seekers. Thanks for joining this New Thought Life vlog. Thanks for following us on Facebook. Thanks for your uh, great works and comments on those of you that have read the Awakened Giant Sleeping Spirit book. And the comments I've been getting have been just fantastic and so uplifting. So thank you so much for that. Today I want to talk about the new thought life way of thinking based on an old experience I had. And this goes back many years when I was very first, made my real first effort at seeking a new way of life. I was talking to one of my earliest spiritual mentors, a fellow that was maybe only a year or so ahead of me on this path, and he was seeking this this new way of life. His path led him in a little different direction than mine. But I asked him just simply one day. I was like, "What are you going to be doing this weekend?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to go see the Billy Graham crusade." And this was here in Seattle, where I live. And Billy Graham, for those of you that remember, for those of you that don't, Billy Graham was unlike anything I think we'll probably ever see again in the way of preachers. At least I haven't seen anything else like it in my time. He would just come and he would fill huge arenas. He was at the Kingdom in Seattle back in those days. It was a facility that held probably 60,000 people. He met there 2 nights, filled it both nights. The Billy Graham Crusades were free. Anybody that wanted to could come. And but he was a Christian. I was not a Christian, and I had some preconceived ideas about Christianity. I was blocked in my thinking. It was blocking me from having some experiences in my life. And so I asked this guy. He told me he was going to go to the Billy Graham Crusade, and my thought was, why in the heck are you going to do that? You know, why would you go to see something like that? And he looked at me and he said, "Well, Kenny, the question isn't why I'm going. The question is why you aren't." And so, immediately, of course, I thought about that. Like, wow, I was just open-minded enough, just a little bit, to where I thought, wow, why is it that I'm not going to see Billy Graham? And it just worked on me for a day or so, I just came up with that. I knew the answer. The answer was that I was blocked from having. I was blocked by my preconceived ideas, by my prejudices, by my unwillingness to be open-minded when it came to Christianity. And so, without telling anybody, because of course I didn't want anybody to know that I'd gone soft, and I just went down and I went to the Billy Graham Crusade. And it was an evening time event, and I got there and I went way up into the rafters at the Kingdom. And as I sat there in my seat, I was by myself. I was with a lot of other people, and they were very friendly folks. Mostly groups were coming by the busloads from churches all over the area. And I have to be honest with you too. There was a rumor that that maybe Johnny Cash, who'd been traveling at that time, Johnny was into his kind of Christian phase in his own seeking a spiritual way of life for himself, and he wasn't there, but there was some other good music folks there. I think there was a few people from the Carter family, and when the music was done, I'm there by myself, and this preacher with this southern drawl got up, and he was very calm. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't pointing his fingers too much, and he just got up and told this simple story. It was a story of Noah's Ark, and kind of the troubles and how people turned to God, and it was a simple story, as I recall, and then he just said, "Hey, if you're ready, please come forward." And he knew that it would take some time, and so it was. He would just keep approaching the mic, and people continued coming forward, just pouring down onto the floor, just pouring from all up above, and just lines of people in every aisleway. You could just see these people just crawling down in this huge crowd of 60 or 70,000 were just pouring down these aisles uh, towards the stage where Billy Graham was, where he was going to give them a blessing, and they were going to turn their life over to God as they understood their God. And I didn't go forward. I wasn't somehow tempted. I felt like I'd already felt saved, and I didn't feel like the need to do that. But it just had this overwhelming, just emotional, spiritual, just at depth experience that I had with that. Watching these people come down and realizing the connection that I had with them on a spiritual level and the level of being a fellow traveler in this planet, and the experience of being human beings together, how we all were just seeking uh, something to get us out of this materialistic, this just wake up and go to work and come home from work and eat your dinner and go to bed, just this lifestyle. And some people like myself were working at overcoming things that had caused homelessness in my life, um, and a drug addiction and alcoholism and mental illness, and all of these people, just this connection that, man, it's just something within us that calls us to seek something deeper in our lives, something that is something that will that we can turn to in these times of trouble. And it had this overwhelming experience, and I can say that it was probably one of my first little just touching my toe in what I have come to know and believe and be devoted to, is this new thought life. I had to have a new way of thinking about this Christian movement. I had to have a new way of thinking about all of the religions, this connectedness. And it was a beautiful thing. I didn't become what I would call, I would say I am a probably could consider myself a New Thought Christian, but I can also consider myself a New Thought Buddhist and a New Thought Catholic. When I look at um, some of the great saints and things that I spend time looking at, Brother Lawrence and Saint Joan of Arc, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, just these, um, this was one of my first times that I had the ability to say, hey, this is a new thought life. It couldn't be some idea or some concept. This has to be experiential, had to be something that was in me, this shift that takes place. And that's what we're doing here at the New Thought Life Movement. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. I hope you'll get something out. I hope you'll think, what was it in my life? What experience was it that was like that Billy Graham experience in my life? This experience of overcoming this prejudice and pride and ego, self-centered focus, to be able to go and connect in that way, that it was no longer a belief, it was no longer anything that I could put this ism after, Catholicism or Buddhism. It was a new thought life, something I was living. And from that day to this, I've been living this new thought life. I've never had to return to that old way of thinking since that day. Never, not once have I had to return to that old hatred and prejudice against such a large group of people for their spiritual beliefs, that I didn't want to have anything to do with it, and I was completely closed-minded. And just remember, you cannot have an open and loving heart and a closed mind at the same time. And something has to happen first before I can have this open heart and loving heart that works both ways, that I can feel and experience and express love to other people and be living this beautiful way of life. I have to be someone who finds a way to open my mind to have one of these Billy Graham experiences. So thank you so much for your time. God bless. Thank you.